Today we're going to make the coconut cake with the chocolate fudgy frosting. We're going to start the cake by turning on our oven at 350 to preheat so that by the time we get everything put together, it'll be ready to go. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a parchment round for our cake pan here. This is a 9-inch cake pan. I think that's the perfect size for a cake. It's a little bit larger than 8-inch, and you get a lot of cake when you to use a 9-inch instead of an 8-inch. So I'm going to cut a parchment round for the cake pan, and I consider parchment a essential ingredient to any cake because parchment is insurance. So you can see that I have folded my piece of parchment in half. Now I'm going to take it and fold it one more time, and then I'm going to fold it again. So we're making origami here, but it's not difficult. And it's so much easier than getting out a pen and having to trace around and cut around the pan. So now what I have here is I've folded it 8 times, and then what I'm going to do is take my pan and put the point of my parchment right in the middle of the pan, and then I'm going to hold that parchment down. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to make a little mark where the side of the pan meets the bottom. So there it is right there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and just cut it a little bit shy of that, and then magic is going to happen. So now I have my round, and it's going to fit beautifully right in the bottom of my cake pan. So that's the easiest way, I think, to cut a parchment round. You can buy parchment rounds in the specialty cooking store like Cook's Warehouse, but they're expensive, and I keep parchment paper around for everything. So that's the way I cut a parchment round. It's very French, but it's also easier, I think. So now I'm going to take my parchment round out for a moment, and I'm going to talk to you about preparing our pan. And to do that, I always spray the entire pan before I put the round in. And if you have coconut oil spray, you can absolutely spray it. I don't have any coconut oil spray today. So what I did was, because we're using coconut oil in our cake, it's a coconut cake, I just, when I warmed the coconut oil to make it liquid, which is what you're gonna do as well, I just did about another tablespoon worth. So I have a silicone basting brush here, which I love my silicone basting brushes. They can go right into the dishwasher. And I'm just gonna paint some coconut oil all around and around on the sides. So this will help you, no matter what kind of cake you're making, to absolutely always get it out of your pan. Even in the springform pan, I use a parchment round on the bottom. So there we go, quick and easy. I'm gonna take it and just move that oil over here. I'm also gonna get a little towel out and clean up my mess. All right, so here goes the round in the bottom of the pan, and our pan is fully prepped now for our cake, and I hear my oven coming on and heating as well. So there is my cake pan. Next up, what I want to do is I want to show you how to measure flour, because most people don't do it the correct way. And even some TV chefs don't. It just kills me every time I see Ina Garten on there where she takes her measuring cup and just digs into the sack of flour or a jar of flour. That's not the way you measure flour, and it's important when you bake, because you know baking is more persnickety than any other kind of cooking. So you'll see that I have got a cup measure right here, and what happens when your flour sits in the pantry, whether it sits in a bag like this or it sits in a beautiful jar or canister, what happens over time is it gets packed down. And especially here in Georgia, where we've got a lot of humidity, what happens is it gets packed down and dense and heavy. And if you just take your measuring cup in and pull out the flour, then what you're getting is a lot more flour. In fact, many professional baking recipes don't even call for you to use cup measures. They call for you to do it by weight, measure your dry ingredients by weight. But we're not going to do that. I'm going to show you how to do it correctly. So what you want to do is take a big spoon and just start by fluffing up your flour. This is all-purpose organic flour from Bob's Red Mill. Nope, it's King Arthur. It's good flour. My favorite kind of flour to use in a cake is a whole wheat pastry flour. Unfortunately, right now it is almost impossible to get. So when all of our COVID considerations are over, then find some whole wheat pastry flour. It works great in cakes. It makes a really tender product. But right now we're using all-purpose, and that's perfect. Now you'll notice I'm just spooning it out after I fluffed it up. And now I have a knife that I'm just going to even off the flour. So I have a perfect cup of flour right here. And when I do that, can you see that there's flour? But I have a piece of parchment paper down there. So I'm not going to waste any of my flour, because after I finish measuring, I'm going to take it and scoop it up and pour it right back into the bag. So I've got a small bowl here, and I'm going to put 1 cup of flour in. And next up, I have a 1/4 cup. So we're going to use 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour in here. So here we go. And that should give me enough. So I'm just going to use a knife to scrape it off. There we go. And here's my 1/4 cup. Then, just like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my parchment paper off and use my bag and simply take the flour and pour it back in there. Now I haven't created a mess, and I haven't wasted my flour as well. So here we go. I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to talk more about the cake. So in this bowl, I have 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I have 2 more dry ingredients I want to put in here. One is 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So there they go. And then the second is a 1/4 cup of coconut flour. Now this is just dried coconut, unsweetened, that has been ground down finely enough for flour. You can find it in the regular grocery store. I'm adding it to my flour because I want the cake to taste super coconutty. So there we go. You cannot use it 1 for 1 for all-purpose flour. It has no gluten in it. And that's what the gluten is the stuff that makes everything stick together. That's a highly technical culinary explanation, right? So I'm also using my flat roux whisk here. Love this whisk. I think I've showed it to you before, but it really moves things around well in a small bowl like this. And I do want to make sure that I get everything incorporated. So these are all my dry ingredients for my cake. Next up, I'm going to grab another bowl, and I'm going to start with my eggs. Now, look at the color of these egg yolks. They're bright orange. Aren't they beautiful? I did an article for the Piedmont Living Better newsletter and researched eggs to find out what kind of eggs that we want to use in our kitchen that are the healthiest and the best for us. And what I found was that we should be buying pasture-raised eggs if we want the best. Now, these are not called free range. They are called pasture-raised. And the reason these are better for us is free range just requires that a chicken house have a door cut into the chicken house, but it doesn't, the chickens may not go out into the pasture. My friend that has chickens says she loves them, but they're not smart, and if some chickens are inside the house, probably all of them are. So that's no guarantee that those chickens are out in the pasture hunting and pecking like they should be. If they're pasture raised, they are. They're typically all brought out of the chicken house in the morning and then brought back in the evening. So look for pasture raised eggs. You can find them in the regular grocery store. They are going to be more expensive, but you can see they are beautiful, and I think they taste better as well. So there's my 3 pasture-raised eggs right into the bowl. I've got a couple other ingredients I'm going to put into my liquid. Next up, what I'm going to put in is about a half a cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. This is, I believe this was the Fage blend. You could use vanilla yogurt in this, but I always keep non-fat plain Greek yogurt in the fridge, so that's what I've called for in this recipe. So there we go, I've got it all out of my cup measure. And oh my goodness, I think yogurt smells good. It smells clean. So there we go. I'm just going to incorporate that. So basically what I'm doing is just whisking a little bit as I incorporate each thing. So I can make sure, because I'm not using a mixer, I can make sure that everything is mixed together well. Next up, I have a cup of raw sugar. Now, raw sugar, you can buy the sugar that's called raw in the grocery store. You can buy Gimadera or turbinado, but basically what this means is this sugar is a little less refined than a white sugar. It's still sugar, don't get me wrong, but it's a little less refined, so it's probably a little better. And I actually like the taste of raw sugar better because it has more molasses in it because it's been less processed, so it's got some more flavor. You can't use raw sugar for every ingredient, for every recipe, but you can in a recipe like this that's super simple and has very few ingredients. So there we go, and because I've whisked up each ingredient as I've gone through, it's the sugar has already incorporated. Last but not least, I'm going to put about a teaspoon of coconut extract in here because, again, I want this cake to be really rich and coconutty. Now what I'm going to do is start incorporating my dry ingredients into my wet ingredients. And so here we go. And I just am making sure that everything is well incorporated before I put in my last ingredient, because that is that coconut oil. I still have some lumpy bumpies in here, but that's fine. The coconut oil is going to take care of it. About a half a cup of coconut oil. I have heated this coconut oil in the microwave. It takes a minute to heat about a quarter or half a cup of solid coconut oil. And this is unrefined coconut oil, which you're going to find in the store, and it's going to be called either virgin or pure. You want the unrefined coconut oil because it has more coconut flavor. When you buy a coconut oil that is expeller pressed, that is a refined coconut oil, and you're going to lose the coconut flavor, which is fine if you just want to use it as a substitute for grapeseed or olive oil. But I want it to be coconutty. So here we go. That's what the batter looks like, and I'm going to pour it into my bowl, into my pan. So here we are. And then I'm going to use my spatula to get the rest of this out. Here we go. We don't want to lose any of this goodness. So now what I'm going to do is my oven is preheated. I'm going to put it in the 350 oven for about 25 minutes. I want you to check the cake after 20 minutes. It's probably not going to be done. Set your timer for 25 minutes. If it's not done then, set it for 30 minutes and then take it out. I do want to do one thing before I take it in and put it in the oven. I want to whack it on the counter a little bit, just in case there are any air bubbles. So I'll be back with you when the cake comes out of the oven, it's cool, and we're going to frost it together.